discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Welcome to Another View. Did you know that African Americans from the South are more likely to contribute to charitable organizations than their counterparts in the North? And is it surprising to you that the greatest charitable giving in our community goes to the church first, and then to organizations that help others? But what about the arts or social or political organizations? Are we as a community likely to give? Here to talk about African American philanthropy is Nicole Cleveland, Annual Giving Manager here at WHRO, Reginald Corinaldi, Chair of the African American Leadership Giving Initiative with the United Way of Southampton Roads, and Marsha Staples, Director of Education and Community Engagement with the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. Welcome all of you to Another View. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
People more likely in the South to give, Nicole, than their northern counterparts. What's that about?
Not really sure, but it's not surprising. I would think that they were taught how to give more so than the people up north. So I'm not really sure about that.
Marsha, you had some thoughts on that.
I think that maybe historically, and kind of going with what she just said, they had to do without from a generational perspective, so that it becomes kind of ingrained. It just, you pass on or help the next generation. I think that may have something to do with it.
When we talk about giving from our community, there seems to be a lot of giving going on. First of all, in church, for example, because people tithe, they give offerings, but we don't normally hear the big names. Like, I don't know of a black counterpart, if you will, to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We just found out they just gave $10 million to the Smithsonian African American Museum. Are there philanthropic organizations like that that are black owned, and are we likely to give at that level?
Well, I believe there are. I couldn't name them offhand, but if you think about the people who give like that, they've had a lot of success in business. And I think this last generation, we've seen a lot of African Americans having success in business as well as pro sports. And almost every athlete who's done very well has some sort of foundation. You hear about those on the TV or in their publicity shots. So there is a lot of giving going on.
But they don't seem to get the attention, Nicole, that some of the other organizations get. Or do you think they do?
I think if it's a big name, they get the attention. I don't think they get as much as other people get, the press coverage. I think a lot of the wives, I've known a lot of wives and read about a lot of the wives of the football players and the NBA players. They have started foundations, and they go out in the community and do a lot of help in the community. But I just don't think a lot of press is centered around what they are giving and what they're doing in the community.
Well, let's bring it here locally to Hampton Roads, because all three of you are involved in one way or another with raising money for charitable organizations or the arts. And so forth. As a general statement, how is the African American community doing in terms of giving in Hampton Roads? Let me start with you, Reggie.
Well, I think there's a lot of giving going on. As you mentioned, the church has been the primary recipient of those gifts, but and we encourage that. We think that's a fantastic way to disperse money within the community to needs that are being identified by the church elders. But there's broader needs throughout the community, and we feel that the United Way, as one organization among several others, reaches out through their 70-odd agencies throughout all the communities in Hampton Roads, not just the African American community, but there are many organizations that are part of the United Way that benefit from United Way contributions that have huge impacts in the African American community.
Now, you're in charge of the African American Leadership Giving Initiative. Tell us what that's about, and what are you doing differently than the general, fundraising that the United Way does?
Okay, well, it's a new initiative, so we're only in our third year, and what we're trying to do is, one, celebrate and identify African Americans that have been giving to the United Way, but maybe not recognized previously. When I started 3 years ago, we could only identify 35 individuals that had given at our leadership level, which we're counting as $1,000 annually. And as you may know, the United Way, most of the contributions come through payroll deduction.
Right.
So we're severely impacted when, you know, local businesses close, or because there goes those payroll deductions. So we wanted to have other outlets for African Americans as well as everyone else to continue to give to the causes that they support. And the African American Leadership Giving Initiative, we now have had 3 different events to publicize the United Way and the things the United Way is doing in the community, as well as to recognize some of the givers. And the last one was extremely well attended. We had over 600 males, both young African American teens as well as their mentors.
That was the Tied to Greatness program,
Tied to Greatness,
yes.
right, and that was in May.
Yes,
yes, indeed. And we just hope to build on that momentum.
The research shows that the Black community tends to give to organizations that help others. You two are more involved in the arts. Marsha, let me start with you. How difficult is it, or is it difficult, to get our community to participate from a philanthropic perspective?
Well, I know that our community definitely appreciates the arts. Often they're not aware, or unless you make them aware, of the cost behind what it takes to bring a program to, say, especially on the education end, to get young people involved. And so I think that there is a need for cultivation. We do have, within the VSO, I know of one African American organization that has given to the VSO to help its education initiatives. But I think that there is a lot of work still left to be done to really get the news out there.
Nicole, what's going on here at HRO?
Well, I think African Americans are giving. They definitely appreciate what we do here at WHRO. They appreciate it. They appreciate the clean TV. They appreciate the education on radio and on TV. They are giving. We do have several in the leadership circle level, that is the $1,200 and above. But we also have a lot of people that give lower than $1,200. I think it's all about education. It's all about teaching the ones that are coming up after us that this is not free. You know, I was not taught growing up that I had to pay for something on TV, or it cost some money to watch PBS or Sesame Street. I just knew that Elmo was on TV, exactly, and Sesame Street was on TV. And so when the fundraisers would come on, I didn't know anything. We would click it off, because why would we have to pay for it? So I think it goes back to just educating us, and not even starting when you're an adult, starting when you're a child, teaching them at that level that it costs money to put these programs on the air. We have to pay this. We don't run commercial spots. So I think it's all about educating those that are watching and listening.
Do we teach our kids overall, just talk about the philosophy of giving within our community? I mean, do we teach our kids that we should give to various organizations that beyond our time and talents, but also our dollars? Is that something you learned when you were growing up?
Definitely.
Do you talk to your kids about that?
I remember collecting money for UNICEF. That's my earliest memory
So do I.
of that.
Wow.
You know, I grew up in New York and lived in public housing. But I still remember going up and down those staircases with a little tin can and collecting coins, knocking on the door for UNICEF. So, I mean, it is taught in our community and at an early age.
I remember March of Dimes when they had my mom used to take us
with
the little card. You would just put dimes in there, and we went in the neighborhood and we collected. And it was just going with your mom, doing something, but then actually finding out what the organization did as you got older and how, in some small way, you had contributed to that.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of African Americans they give back to the service industry because they were helped by a service organization. So they have that philosophy that when I make it, I'm going to give back because United Way helped me. They helped me keep my lights on, or they helped me during Christmas buy presents for my children. So when I get older, I'm going to give that back. And I think it's very interesting that when we talk about how we collected money as children, we did it collectively. We went out, we went around to houses to do it together. And I think if we came together as a body, you know, and as society, African Americans, we could do more, because some people will think my $48 is not a lot of money. If your goal is $1 million, my $48 isn't going to do anything. But together, all of the little $48 or $10, they can add up.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of the education.
And we want that $48 because we want another view to stay on the air.
Exactly.
Let me read a statement to you. This is by researcher Emmett Carson. He says, African Americans are more likely to engage in volunteer activities sponsored by African American organizations because such organizations are more likely to solicit their support. Now, all three of you work for a more mainstream organization, but do you find that there is a lot of discussion about the emphasis on how to go find people in our community to give, or is anybody paying attention? I guess is what I'm asking. What's up, Marsha?
I think that there is, with the mainstream organizations, I believe that there has to be an intentionality. There has to be intentionality. You just don't exist in a void. You're in a city or in a population where there are other people who are not mainstream members of a demographic group. So there has to be some intentionality about building relationships. I'm really big on building relationships. People will give when you begin to become part of what they find important, whether it's passing out lunches to children, if you're there, or backpacks. And so they'll say, well, we didn't, you know, you came and you helped us do this, and we're just used to seeing you play the violin or whatever, see your members playing the violin, but if you have this type of impact in our community where you can embrace those things that are important to us, then we're going to begin to consider to give back. But there has to be an intentionality in the cultivation of those relationships.
I think it also goes back to show me you know me. If you know, we know public TV and public radio, they're listening, they're watching. 1 out of every 10. Give. That's such a small number. That's where we have to go after those donors for WHRO. Where they're watching, they're listening. Now we need to, you know, show us that you know us and make a contribution, make a donation. So,
what about socioeconomic issues? I mean, and Reggie, I'm going to look to you because you know you're also in the financial world. But is there an assumption that you've got to make a whole lot of money before you can start giving to others or giving to charities?
You know, somewhat, but you know, I see the same thing when people say, well, I don't have enough money to see a financial advisor. Well, everyone needs to make the most of what they have. And I have just been encouraged over the last couple of years working with the United Way and seeing the young people, the young men, the young women who start their first job and they're looking for ways to give back. And part of it is money, but a lot of it's volunteerism as well. They want to be involved. They want to help. And they just need to know outlets to do it. I had several people come up to me at the Tide to Greatness and afterwards and just say, how can I get involved? You know, how can I help? You know, and so I think it's a natural resource that we have in the community of people wanting to help. We just have to provide the outlets for them.
So how do we make the education work then? Because it feels like there's a level of education that needs to go on in our community to continue or for some people to even start to give.
Well, I look at it like we're going to hold on to our dollars. You know, when we get our paycheck, that's my money. I need to know where my money is going. So I do think it's part of educating them. If I give you this $50, what are you going to do with it? I think the organization has to be accountable and let them know this is what this is going to operating, or this is going to the food pantry, or this is going to cut someone's lights on. You need to tell us where exactly you're going to put our money, even if it's $25, because it's $25 that they could have held on to.
That's true. That's very true. I really agree with that. And especially from where I sit in the arts, well, you know, what does music do? Well, I guess my take on this, I look at music as a human service. You have human beings making music, giving to others, enriching them in a way that sometimes you just really can't put a dollar amount on.
Right.
Also, we've seen great results when young people are impacted early with music who would have otherwise taken other paths, so that people can see that putting into that type of arena, really down the road, you may not see an immediate return, but down the road, for every class or concert or some mentor that worked with them that kept them away from a negative influence.
Well, Marsha, let me ask you this, because you know, not to pick on the symphony, but there's a mindset, I think, among parts of our community that, first of all, I don't go do that highbrow stuff, okay? And then they're not aware of the things you were just talking about, how you're in the schools, how you're in the Boys and Girls Clubs, and you're at different venues bringing the music to the people. So when you're out there fundraising, or the others in your organization are out there fundraising, how do you make that, eliminate that disconnect?
One of the things that I do on a personal level is to be sure that I can, as she said, answer the questions. What do you do in this area? Or have you been to our neighborhood before? Why do you only play this kind of music? And then begin to have a discourse and conversation with them, and begin to say, well, we have children's programs. We have children's programs for 2 to 12-year-olds. We have things that are affordable. That's another barrier, that they believe that the tickets are so high priced, nobody can only go to that, only this part of the community or population can go. To make them aware, it's an education process. It is a process that must be embraced by almost every arts organization that's finding it out, for them to stay in existence. That you have to go out and make what you do known, and how it impacts the community that you're going into.
Barbara, I also think we have to continue to tell the stories. A lot of times when you're asking for donations or you're asking for money, it's someone that has a lot of money that's doing the asking. So that individual that you're asking is saying, they don't know how I feel. They've never been where I've been. I used to sit on a board of a homeless shelter, and the people that were asking the people to give were well-to-do people. They weren't in the trenches. That's why we can never forget who helped us in the beginning. You know, you have not always been, you know, up there highfalutin, as some people would say. You know, you have to remember, just like you said, where you grew up. You have to remember that, so they can identify with it.
And tell the story from that perspective. You go after those highfalutin folks, as
well, you know,
as they say. How do you convince people to up their charitable giving? And
well,
why?
you know, I like to talk about, you know, well, we've heard about your footprint. What is your social footprint? I mean, how many people are you helping? And I find that people generally want to help, and they just need to be asked. In the United Way, we find that if there's someone you know asks you to do something, you're so much more likely to do it than to respond to a card or an ad. So it's really a one-on-one operation. And that person is picking up off of your prestige with them. They're saying, you're doing this, well, you know, I think I could too. And then if each one tells one, now you've got a whole army of people out there helping raise those funds. And you can see it when there's a special event that occurs, like Katrina or some sort of tragedy, how people come together and can rally around that. But there are tragedies happening every day all over Hampton roads. It's just not visible unless someone's out there telling that story. So you're right about that storytelling. It's very important.
We got about a minute and a half, and I'm going to give each one of you an opportunity to plug your organization and encourage people to give, because I think that we really have to do that. I think our community needs to understand that there are organizations out there that can help. There are organizations that can teach. There are organizations that can just provide pleasure. You know, but we need to support them. So, Nicole, I know we're almost about to wrap up our radio drive that we have going on right now.
We are. Tomorrow will be the end of our FM Fall Pledge Drive, and we need all the support that we can get. So go to WHRO.org and point, click, and contribute, and you could be entered to win a Kindle. We need your support.
Okay, Reggie?
I have a Kindle, and I like it, so please, please go ahead and support that cause. The United Way is very visible in its using its 70-odd organizations, from homeless prevention to early childhood care, helping young people accomplish their goals. There's so many aspects, elderly care, as I mentioned. So we're there, and it's easy to get involved, and it's a very transparent organization. As you said, we know where the money goes. There are many reports on that, and very, very low overhead.
Okay. And Marsha, you got about 20 seconds.
Oh, my. You can go to www.virginiasymphony.org. You can give online. Our education programs reach many, many young people in the Hampton Roads area, not just on the south side, but also the peninsula.
All the way across, absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope that all of your organizations are successful. I hope ours is really successful. Well, but people need to understand that part of it is that the dollars that they give to WHRO allow shows like Another View to exist. So we want that to continue. Thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And our thanks to Nicole Cleveland, Reginald Corinaldi, and Marsha Staples for their advice and insight into charitable giving. Up next, how some eye fashion can be cute but harmful. And later, we'll hear some soulful steel pan music. But first, here's what's happening in Hampton Roads. Welcome back. They look fashionable, but if your teen comes home wearing colored contacts and you haven't made her an appointment with the eye doctor, be warned. As our expert, Dr. Christina Ramsey, explains, the desire to look good could cost you your eyesight if you're not careful.
Dr. Ramsey, what kind of problems are you seeing?
The problems I'm seeing are infections on the front part of people's eyes because they're wearing contact lenses that are not fitted properly. The bacteria that's normally on the eye starts to reproduce, and it starts eating away at the front part of the eye, causing ulcers. Okay, and that's a very serious problem because it does leave a scar, and that will be there for probably the rest of their lives, and it does affect their vision. So I need people to get fitted properly for their contact lenses with their eye doctor.
These are the good ones or the bad ones?
They're the same. What happens is that people are buying them and then selling them at the stores. The only way you know that these are contact lenses that are fitted for your eyes is if you got them from the eye doctor. Okay, so they give you the wrong prescription, they can give you the wrong curvature, because contact lenses are medical devices. They go directly on your eye. It's just like you wouldn't take someone else's medical prescription because it was prescribed by a doctor. You wouldn't buy prescription medicine from 7-Eleven. You need to get your medicine from the doctor or the pharmacy.
Some sage advice. Dr. Anthony Haley has been giving back to the Hampton Roads community for more than a decade. Haley is the founder and director of Mosaic Steel Orchestra. The group is composed of some very talented young people who, as our Lisa Godley found out, really know their way around a steel pan.
Dr. Anthony Haley's musical journey began as a percussionist, studying everything from the snare drum to the xylophone. Then one day he was introduced to the steel pan, and everything changed.
So I studied your Western classical percussion, marimba, timpani, snare drum, xylophone, you name it. But when I found steel pan, it was something that I could really tie into. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3.
As founder and director of the Steel Mosaic Orchestra, Dr. Haley arranges most of the group's music. The orchestra practices twice a week at the Addicts Theater in Norfolk and is made up of young people between the ages of 14 and 22. Just close your eyes and you'll understand why it's called an orchestra. The steel pans emulate everything from a piano to a bass. You can tell by the way Dr. Haley conducts that he loves it.
I tell people, this is it's my passion.
A passion that's shared by his 15-year-old son, Nathaniel.
We played in New York and at JMU and all around Hampton Roads.
What's it like playing with Dad?
It's really fun. You learn a lot and get really good, I guess.
That same passion is evident in students like Monet Wigfall, who moved from junior Mosaic to Mosaic 4 years ago.
I'm a percussionist, so I love playing drum set.
Any special song or something that you all do that strikes your fancy more than anything else?
I have to say probably Comancheros. That's the song I play on drum set.
I asked Monet if he could teach me a quick song.
It's not really hard. It's just a matter of taking time to focus.
And after about 10 minutes, this is what I learned.
Now, while the steel panists make this look very easy, it takes a lot of practice. In fact, Dr. Haley says he can usually have someone playing pretty good in about 7 months.
And most of the music that we play, it's some sort of popular music. Either it's Trinidadian popular music, being soca or calypso, or some American pop music. We play some R&B, we play some rock and roll, we play some classical tunes. But I arrange all the music for the band because I know the different levels and abilities of the individual players in the band, so I'm able to take a tune and work it so that the band can perform it and it's still highly recognizable to the listener.
Dr. Haley teaches steel pan classes for both children and adults at the Attucks. But if you want to play with the Mosaic Orchestra, you must audition. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Thank you for being with us this evening. Next week, a one-on-one conversation with the Superintendent of Norfolk Public Schools, Dr. Stephen Jones. We'll see you then.